Welcome to Round Round.
Rant. This is podcast number 3, and today I'm joined by Peter Burke, the founder of CrossFit 353, which is a CrossFit gym located on Bath Avenue in Dublin 4 and has been open since 2013. Peter was also a pupil at St Michael's and graduated in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And now, things to just kick things off, I always ask, how are you getting on today, Peter?
Great, Richie. Thanks a million. Delighted to be here.
Superb. Well, just to get the political question out of the way, what would your memories coming through St Michael's be, and being part of the senior school and the senior cycle, and basically what type of pupil were you and what were your fond memories?
Loaded question there. Yeah, very, very, very positive. Even walking in, I ran into Tim Keller, ran into Aidan O'Donnell. We walked along with the library earlier and saw pictures of Larry McHugh and Father Little, and flooded with nostalgia and very positive memories. I actually joined into second class and had an incredible teacher by the name of Carmel O'Neill. I'm not sure if she's around, but any of the early guys would remember Carmel would be in picking up rubbish in the yard before school started, and I couldn't understand it as an 8 or a 9 year old, but an incredibly caring and loving woman. So my initial welcome to St Michael's was phenomenal. Had a great experience in the junior school. In terms of a student, I guess I came in, I stayed back a year. I came in at second class and I stayed back a year when I joined. So Malcolm Gladwell talks in Outliers about guys being born at the right time of the year and how they go on to be good at sport or whatever. Well, I was about the same size as I was in second class as I am now. So I came in and was captain of the rugby team and good in school, and came from a national school in Clontarf. So my Irish was way better than everybody. So I just had the dream start, I guess. Plenty of pals, decent at rugby. So yeah, hugely positive in the junior school. I guess being the biggest kid on the rugby team, everyone was great. You ran with the ball, and myself and Dara Fanning duked it out for a few years. But as is the case, the biggest guy maybe doesn't get developed as well. So very quickly everyone caught up, and I had gone from a position of grave importance at 8 to significantly less important at 10, 11 when everyone was as big as me. So yeah, rugby was massive. It's an identity in the school, and I guess back then we were the great pretenders and the kind of little brother of Black Rock, trying to emulate constantly. First year, the guys like Frank Carney and Ronan O'Connor and Dave Mahoney came in, and these guys were a different level and gave us a real hard cutting edge, and it was great. Like, we were competitive, and thoroughly enjoyed it. If I'm waffling, just stop me. But
no.
In terms of a student, I guess I was okay. I was lucky in that I applied myself to my studies. I didn't mind it particularly, but I really enjoyed it here. People kind of ask what kind of school it was. Retrospectively, and I said Michael's was an incredible place where if you wanted to do very well, you could, but if you wanted to go in and have a great time, you could kind of do that as well, and nobody will give you too much trouble. So great for some. Maybe some guys didn't benefit as much from that, but yeah, look, without going on, thoroughly enjoyed my time in the senior school. Rugby a huge part of it, but learned loads. Great pals, great mentors and role models.
Nice. And obviously with the end of the senior cycle comes the leaving cert, and then the impending pressure of the CAO in college. So post leaving cert, where did you end up in college?
I went a stone's throw up the road up to UCD. When I was driving in earlier by the pavilion, I actually remembered finishing my last exam. I can't remember what it was, but it was a smashing day at the end of June 2005, and I sat out in the grass with Andy Keane and a couple of the guys, and this bizarre feeling of this anticlimactic, well, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
Never again. So it was a beautiful day. So we probably went on the beer or something, but I applied for a couple of bits. I applied for BESS in Trinity. I applied for Commerce in UCD. Why? I don't know. I guess we're told coming up that do something you're interested in rather than what your points will allow, but the vast majority do the opposite. So I ended up in UCD doing BCom, as generic a business degree as you can do, because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do.
And just to stop you there, was there any kind of career guidance at any stage, or was it just a case of you're an individual, you pick what college course you do and just hope that you enjoy it rather than you actually being educated on different courses?
Yeah, it's peculiar. There definitely was career guidance, and I remember Barry Kelleher doing dash tests potentially, or we'd have a Wednesday last class where we're filling in boxes on mechanical reasoning, but our application at 16 and 17 to this was limited. We wanted to go look at girls or play rugby or muck around, so there absolutely was career guidance, but I think it was a funny one where I was the first person in my family and extended family to go to university, so I didn't have the benefit of a cousin or an auntie or a brother to say, I think you should study X. So yeah, I just kept it broad in general. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was like, I'll go up to UCD and do commerce. I met Harry Cregan in the Mary. Is Harry?
Yeah,
Harry,
Charlie.
Sorry, I'm always mixing them. He'll kill me for that. But I met Charlie and Emmett, and I was saying to Charlie, when I was in UCD, I spent, I'd say, 90% of my time here in the great black hole that is the coach's changing room, and myself and the likes of Chris O'Connor and Andy Skeen and Robbie O'Flynn and Greg, and there's great memories and great fun, but I ended up kind of mucking up my college. I got a 2-2 in my commerce for some peculiar reason, exact reason I know that I was here. Didn't really apply myself to college that much. It was like, I have my identity, I know what I'm doing, I'm kind of a rugby guy, I'm coaching rugby, I'm playing rugby, this isn't that important, I've done my leaving cert. So a little bit of a regret that I didn't apply myself a little bit more to college, but some incredibly fond memories and good times coaching here through my college years.
Nice. And when you finished your degree, what was next on the agenda? Did you go straight into work? Did you go away?
Yeah, it's funny, it's almost the same plus 4 years where finished school, had no great plan, finished the BCom, had no great plan, so I kind of just followed the path that so many had followed before me, which was, oh well, I better do a master's now, I better put off real world living and kick that can down the road a bit before committing. So I went up to Smurfit, and I through school and college, similar to Tom in your last podcast or one of the earlier ones, wasn't great at the financials, wasn't great at the maths or the statistics. So I was like, I'll get away from accounting, didn't particularly like it. So did a master's in marketing up in Smurfit, and there's a couple of masters up there, but this one was called a marketing development program, where you dress up and play office for a year, and you get a bit of stick from your peers up there because you're in full business attire and you're doing commercial projects. And while you do get a bit of stick, it was actually a really good year. It's your first taste of commercial business life in a kind of a safe setting. So I did that for a year, finished that, same thing, plus 1 year, didn't really know what I wanted to do. People were speaking about this Jemison graduate program as being highly regarded in the marketing sphere. Did I want to do marketing? Didn't really know. I said I'd keep the ball rolling, I'll apply for that. Applied for one job, thankfully got it, and the next thing I know, I'm off on a plane to Oslo.
And what took place in Oslo? To keep going?
Yeah, so I was very lucky to get this job with Jemison. I think it was a pretty sought after career at the time, and the story we had heard was the guys give you a credit card, they send you off to market and you party for a year and you buy drinks and you go out. So I was all up for this. That was great. Little did I know that Scandinavia was a dark market in regards to alcohol. Yeah. So you get over there, you can't advertise, you can't buy someone a drink, you can't put up a poster or sell a billboard. So I was sitting in Pernod Ricard in Oslo, my first job ever, effectively with nothing to do. So what did I do? I went back to what I knew. I looked up a rugby club. I got involved in a rugby club there, Oslo Rugby Club. And as I grew older, my ability as a player was waning, and I knew to stay involved at some sort of level, I needed to start coaching. So I kind of played one game and moved into coaching. And that went really well. And the further I got into the coaching, we ended up winning a national championship that year with Oslo. The more I got into the coaching, I was kind of doing less in work and more in coaching. So did that, went along. The end of the year came around. My contract with Jameson elapsed. There was talk about moving to the States. I wasn't so sure, but the national coach at the time had quit or had moved on, and the guys were in an impasse for one game. So they were due to play Norway were due to play Sweden in September. Sweden were ranked 50th and Norway were ranked 92nd. And the head of Norwegian Rugby just rang me. He knew I'd done well with Oslo in the regional competition. Now, bear in mind, this is an incredibly low level of rugby. And he just goes, would you give us a dig out? So I'll never forget, I was 22 or 23, and I'm walking out to the first training camp in Bergen, carrying the water bottles. And there's guys here who've played 15 years of rugby. They're mid to late 30s, looking at me going, is this kid the water boy? And pretty quickly you need to establish ground rules and get buy-in and say, guys, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and thankfully that one game went on to been offered the job full time. When I say full time, it was 8 weekends a year. But yeah, an incredible journey, absolutely unbelievable experience at 23, coaching full adults in a national setup. Admittedly, a very amateur setup, as you can imagine, being the 15th sport in Norway, but an outrageous opportunity and something that there's no way I appreciate at the time, but I look back on with incredibly fond memories and incredibly proud of now.
And you touch on it there, you're 23 and you're bossing around 30-year-olds who've been around the block a lot longer than you had. What kind of learnings did you take from that you could carry on when you got back to Ireland or in future jobs, future coaching jobs, whatever? Like, basically, what learnings did you take from being kind of inexperienced in other people's eyes, but then also having to prove that you are knowledgeable about the topic at hand? In this case, it was rugby. Like, what learnings did you take, or what did you learn about yourself? Yeah,
I guess I'd be quite a reflective person, and I based a lot of my coaching on some of the coaching I may have received in my formative years. So some good, some bad, but even as a young man, I'd reflect and say, well, was that good for me? Did that work for me? And I think I took a lot of the positives growing up, but also learned from some of the things as work-ons. So as a coach, my philosophy or attitude would be to be seen and heard least. I'm there to facilitate the players. I'm there to help them. So if Richie and Keane and Ross go out and they're killing the lineouts and the scrums, I sit back and say nothing. Like we chatted briefly about St Mary's. Cathal Marsh came up on return from injury and played with us a couple of weeks ago. And I text Cathal after the game just saying, Cathal, thanks so much. You've really helped us. But also him being on the training pitch makes my job, I don't do anything. He's an incredibly high level professional. Yeah. He's a really effective communicator. So when Cahill's on the pitch, Cahill runs the show, and I just stand back and watch and with my notepad out and take a few notes. So to answer your question, I guess you can't bluff people in any walk of life. Very, very quickly people will ascertain whether you're talking sense, whether you're adding value, or whether you're uncomfortable and just trying to bluff them. And I guess it was probably the first time in my life at 22, 23 that I was like, I'm okay at this. These guys back me, and the direct feedback I got from adults. Whereas if you're coaching a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, I'm not sure they can espouse or communicate how much they appreciate. Maybe they've nothing to compare it to. Yeah. But certainly in Norway, maybe guys hadn't. I came from a rugby academy, a coaching rugby academy in Michael's. So my ability to communicate and give these guys some base level understanding of the game was massively appreciated from them. And that was encouraging for me.
Okay. And when you returned from Norway, where did you go from there? Did you go back straight into work? Did you come back to Michael's? Or did you basically have a game plan from where you had left off with Jameson?
Yeah, I kind of skipped over an important piece where you're working in the school now, and the school has been incredibly good to a lot of the past pupils, a lot of my peers, older and younger. And before I moved into Jameson, I think there was a 6-month window where I'd finished college and university, and I wasn't due to start for 6 months. So Sheila Murray and Tim, absolutely no problem, gave me a job, paid me over the odds probably, coached a little bit of rugby. So the school really looked after me in that interim period. I think when I came back from Norway, Again, 6 years on after college, pretty impatient. Again, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Was marketing for me? Not sure. Was I great working in a team where I didn't really get a sense of where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to do? So came back to Michael's, coached a lot of rugby, and kind of coaching rugby was a constant through from when I was 18. In sixth year here, I remember Greg McWilliams was SCT coach when I was in sixth year, and he's my geography teacher, a bloody great geography teacher. And I said, Greg, is there any chance I could come out and help or watch or whatever? And he was incredibly encouraging, and he said, yeah, come on out. I'll never forget, I was a sixth year. Kevin Jones and Colin Marsh and Emmett and Mark Craig were in first year, and I'm there helping them doing some drills, and I was like, geez, I like this, I really enjoy this. So what was the question, Rich?
Where did you go from Jameson once you returned?
Yeah, so I came back to the school, back into coaching, was loving it. So I was here for a few months again, and I was like, right, I got to do something. I'm kind of 25, 26 now. I'm incredibly impatient. I should have been a millionaire by this stage. Yeah. So I remember having a chat with Chris O'Connor, aka Tiny, another stalwart of St. Michael's here. And Chris was applying for a few jobs in Ernst & Young and PricewaterhouseCoopers and different places. So I was like, Chris, show us what you're doing there. So Tiny sent me on a few links. I popped in a few applications and ended up with this consulting job in PwC inside in Spencer Dock. So I was 26, going into consulting to start maybe my second or third career, hoping this would be the big one.
Okay. And when you joined PwC, was that like the job you wanted, or did you feel that you were kind of just forced upon it and you think, right, okay, here's a stable job, I'm just going to dive into it, hope for the best? Or did you actually do research and say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
No research, which is silly. I said to you something we discussed earlier, every decision in life, and it's only something I've come to in the last 8, 10, 12 weeks, is either a hell yes or a fuck no, pardon my French. I think I knew within 6 minutes of walking into PwC that was the latter. I didn't have the clarity at that point in my life to go with my gut, and something I've got considerably better at. But I said I'd give it a chance, and I remember I was still living at home at this stage, and my kind of folks were saying, give it a chance. I'd be quite impatient as a person. I've a little notebook I carry around, and like, in order to be valued in any organisation, you have to add value. So the concept of going into work and trudging through the processes to get your pay was never enough for me. I'm competitive by nature, and I want to get ahead, and I want to do well for myself. So the idea that whether I work at 10% output or I work at 90% output, it makes no difference. And it's not a money thing, it's a value thing, and how I feel. Am I fulfilled with what I'm doing? And I was incredibly unfulfilled working in consulting. Now, whether that's the business model, whether that's the level I was at, I'm not sure, but I'd say within 6 weeks I was looking for other jobs, so I knew it wasn't for me.
Okay, so that's 8-9 years since you've left school. And did you leave after a year? Was it a 2-year stint? Basically, how long did that last? Yeah,
so I knew pretty quick it wasn't for me. Again, the whole time I've been coaching rugby on the backside, and I was really enjoying my rugby, and I was playing a little bit, but coaching mainly. And the sustaining piece from leaving school, the one job I ever had that didn't feel like a job, was coaching. I was doing a little bit of work here in the school still, and there was a good group of guys. I remember Emmett, Shabsy, myself, Chris O'Connor, and the famous Gary Featherstone. We were training a little bit, and we were kind of doing a hybrid CrossFit back here. I'd got into CrossFit in Norway with a couple of guys. It was brilliant. It was an incredible way to train. It was kind of revolutionary. Now, what we were doing back then versus what we're doing now is probably a completely different thing, but we thought we were doing CrossFit. We thought we were great. So we're doing this with Gary, and I barely knew Gary at that stage. I knew he was this kid a couple of years below me, senior cup medal in 07, and just a gentleman. So we're training one day up in the gym here in Michael's, and I think Gary goes, here, we just give this a go. And I think there was himself, myself, Tiny, Emmett, Shabsy in an all CrossFit group, and Rory Kavanagh was in that as well. And so Gary and I were like, yeah, we'll give it a go. So I had a friend who opened a gym in Cork, and we decided to go down to him Saturday morning. We were supposed to pick Rory Cavan up on the Saturday morning. Rory slept it out, so we were sitting outside his house. He missed it. He must have been out with you the night before,
maybe.
And went down to Cork, and we were like, "Wow, this is incredible!" And just went from there.
And like, where do you start? So you've got the idea in place. You've got a colleague to go on this business venture with you. What are the first few steps you have to take to actually make an idea a reality?
Yeah, great question. And I reflect on this a little bit. Probably not enough that I've personally won the life lottery. And I think Tom touched on it, and I think Brian spoke about how fortunate all of us are to have gone to a school like Michael's, and that could be Clongowes or Rock or Belve or whatever, but to have gone to a school like this affords you with such massive opportunities. And it seems like my whole life I've been in the right place at the right time, where we wanted to start this business. Okay, so there's a gym here, fully stacked, with parking, in the middle of the most affluent area of the country. Let's give it a go. So when I popped in earlier, Tim was like, are you back in to rent the gym again off me? Is the business going that bad? I didn't want to tell him the truth, but yeah, so again, Tim, I went over to Tim, did a deal on the back of a napkin, as Tim likes to do, which is probably the best way to do business, and we were off on a handshake. So we just said we'd try it, we give it a go. I remember taking a loan off a nameless past pupil for €1,300 to buy some equipment, and they're pulling my hair going, how the hell am I gonna repay this? I only actually repaid it about a year ago. I forgot about it, which he was happy to get back. But within 6-8 weeks we had 70 members. We were completely oversubscribed. We have a waiting list of 100. We had some raving fans. We barely knew what we were doing. So from early doors, similar to Tom, the first day he opened his shop, he was making money. We weren't making any money now, but there was enough in the business to say, you know what, there's something in this. Yeah. And
like, were you taken aback with these, 70 people joining? Did you have plans? Like, when you were opening up, once you got the premises, were you saying, okay, we can have X amount of people, if we get any other, we're going to be struggling? Or like, was there any plan, or was it still at the kind of stage where we're just going to go with the flow, see what happens? Or had you a strategic plan in place?
It was kind of trial and error, I suppose. We went from 2 hours a week. We were fighting with Mary Bramble and Tim to try and say, give us more hours. And Tony didn't want to stay here till 8 on a Friday night or something. But we went from 2 hours a week to 10 hours a week. And we couldn't understand why the school wouldn't allow us to run classes before school, at lunchtime, in the evening. We were saying we could have 500 members here in the school. Now, obviously it's a school, it's not a commercial gym. And it was difficult for us to get our heads around at that time. But we were just so overjoyed by the success of it. And I'm not saying success financially, but I'm just saying that we're putting a product out, it's being consumed, and the feedback is very, very strong. There's enough to keep going. So we reached the end of our agreement with St. Michael's, and we were very fortunate that Jamie Heaton had opened a gym up in Sandyford and gave us a dig out in transition. So early days in St. Michael's, again, similar to Tom, we were like, let's go for this. Let's really try and have a go. If the business shuts down, let's have it on our back rather than it just withering away. So probably the biggest learning I've had in my life professionally, we went after a premises in Spencer Dock, 5,000 square foot, ground floor retail unit, ideal, absolutely ideal. And we spent the guts of 35 grand on this premises, preparing it, getting it set up, and I won't go into the details of it, but at the final moment, the rug was pulled out from under us. Money gone, all the consultants, planners, architects taking their money, kind of laughed us off. And retrospectively, we were so green and so amateur that I'm sure they saw us from miles off. Yeah. And that premises was never going to work and never has worked subsequently. But it was probably the best experience that could have happened at that stage, because it could have broken us, and it very nearly did. But again, for whatever reason, maybe my stubbornness and pig-headedness, we kept going.
And where eventually in the search of a premises, how did finding the ideal location, a bit like what I touched on with Tom in the last podcast, location is everything because it's such a personal thing. Where did you end up and how did that come about, as in attaining the location?
Again, the gods of fortune and luck were looking out for us. A good pal of yours, Keane Culleton, I had everybody looking for premises. I was rabid, asking family, friends, sisters, uncles, if you see anything, give us a shout. We're desperate, we need somewhere. And I got a phone call from my good pal Keane Culleton. It must have been April, May 2015, and he says, there's an old garage here on Lots Road which is vacant. You should have a look. This is the current Lots & Co now. That was a Elasta Motors. So hopped in the car, met Keane down there. We're sticking our head in the window being nosy, and the owner of Elasta comes out and goes, lads, what are you doing? And we said, we're looking to rent the place. He's like, it's been sold, it's gone, good luck. And we're like, all right, and got chatting. He goes, there's a big abandoned warehouse down the other lane. And we were like, what? So wandered down the far side of the credit union, down Shaw's Lane, around to the left, and this massive warehouse there. And we're looking at this going, we've gone to school in this locality for however many years, been to the Aviva, Lansdowne Road, mucked around here. How do we never know this? So anyway, long story short, looking in the letterbox, hopping over a wall, having a look. This fella comes out and he goes, lads, what are you doing? Fortunately, the landlord had just purchased, or the owner had just purchased this building and the offices adjacent. And straight away, brazen as you like, I said, do you fancy renting it? And your man goes, okay. We went into the office, Tim Keller style, back of an envelope, drew up a deal, and that was the kind of heads of terms, or the beginning of that relationship. Now, obviously went through legal and all the proper processes, but it was just fortune, because we had gone for and missed however many number of premises, because we were great in theory, saying these are our projections and these are our plans, but what have we actually done? Who was going to take a punt on us? So fortunate that this fella, he was a rock guy, had a kid in rock, so even immediately that private school network pinged into action. We knew some of the same people. There was a trust there, an inherent trust through sport and these schools. We managed to get a deal done.
Sweet. So how basically would you go about, you've got this massive warehouse, you've got great location, and then did you need outside help in order to promote it to the next level, to do up the interior, to do up the exterior, to do up the design? Or was that pretty much you're still at the stage where, looking around the friends you have, you're kind of saying, right, let's just do this ourselves? Or did you have to get outside help, extra funding, etc.?
Yeah, I guess the first thing, go with your gut, just take it, just go. We'll worry how to fund it later, we can always get money. So did the deal, and we were going down the route of the banks, we were going down the route of private investors, angel investors, venture capitalists, and we, again, from the Michaels network, we got some support, which is incredibly kind. Ultimately, I ended up doing a deal with a private individual, a pal of mine, who, other than potentially liking me and wanting to give me a chance, the business didn't make sense. Like, it's not a high net worth business. If you get 15 of them, maybe we're talking money. But this guy gave us enough money to get us started, which was incredibly generous. And for all he knew, it would have bombed. I was incredibly humbled that he would give this money out of his pocket personally to back me and Gary and my vision of the business. So got the funding, and then we just went to work. So did a couple of summers building with Royce's dad when we were kids. So put the hard hats on. Gary and I started pulling up the floors, and we were incredibly lucky where we had 30 or 40 members at that time. Not a whole lot, but anyone that could help did help. We had Chris O'Connor showing up. I think Emmett was down there at times. So guys were showing up, digging in, mucking in, and helping us to create this dream. So we said, I think we took the premises on the 1st of May. Sorry, we took the premises around this time in 2015, and we said we're open on the 1st of June. No matter what, we're open on the 1st of June. So we did. So committed to that, got it all done, but we had no electricity till about the 5th of June.
Okay.
So we opened day one with a generator out the back, which sounded like a German tank humming. So the neighbours weren't too happy with that. But yeah, look, we got it open the 1st of June, and it was incredible.
And how did you go about creating the business plan? So when you're getting your investors and when you're trying to convince even members to join, because CrossFit, to my understanding, it's only really been a common thing for, I'd say, the last 5-10 years. So like with all these investors coming in and even trying to convert typical gym goers to CrossFit, how did you go about? Because like CrossFit now, it's a massive brand. Once you hear the name, everyone knows there's athletes attached to it. But back then it was probably just in its infancy. So how did you create a concrete kind of idea based upon something that wasn't world renowned or established to such the extent it is now?
Yeah, you're bang on. It's 10 years old this year, which for a privately owned company, I'm not sure what the valuation is, but certainly in the hundreds of millions, is incredibly short term. You're right, in Dublin and in Ireland, I think we were the 17th CrossFit gym to open in the country. I think there's 150 here now. And when the market isn't very educated on what you're doing, trying to explain, Richie, our gym costs €200 a month, but FlyFit costs €30 a month. That conversation, that education piece is a step too far. If we're spending time and effort and money trying to educate people on why, it's a waste of resource for us. So there's a huge amount of trial and error on how do we do this, what do we do, do we try target old age pensioners from 10 to 11 when they're not working, do we try target pregnant mums or new mothers, do we try target students, and we kind of tried all of this, but I guess we were lucky in that the core of what we did was CrossFit, and CrossFit is kind of targeted at the 25 to 34 year olds, money rich, time poor, who maybe have tried X number of other trainings and it doesn't work. CrossFit works, and if it's done sensibly and conservatively, it's a great way to train. We'd follow a guy called Ben Bergeron, who has probably the best CrossFit gym in the world, and he talks about there's kind of two CrossFits you see. You see the CrossFit Games on TV, which are these Usain Bolt, Cristiano Ronaldo type athletes, elite athletes at the top of their game who've won the genetic lottery, who are superhumans. That's 1%, less than 1%. And then you've got class-based training, which is everybody else. We are firmly in the class-based training for everybody else. We're not creating or striving to create elite level, superhuman, ultimate warriors. We're very much focused on a low trajectory towards a distant horizon, so that if Richie comes in and trains with us at 20, hopefully Richie will be training us at 30, at 40 and at 50, and he's bought in that, this makes me feel good about myself, mentally better, physically better. And so I guess to come back around to the question, what do? We sell relationships. We sell an authentic place that you can come, get a sweat, feel good about yourself, not be bombarded by social media, bombarded by ads, bombarded by noise, that you can switch off. And some people are really into the training and they want to get their muscle ups. Some people couldn't care less about the muscle ups. They want to switch off. They want to get a break from the wife or the kids. So the nice thing about CrossFit is in some way it can be all things to all people. And we just try and listen to what our group are telling us. Interesting.
And for you personally, like you'd got, as you were saying, like you played rugby yourself, you coach rugby yourself, and a big part of rugby is obviously strength training, conditioning training, and like traditionally you growing up, that's what you would probably have experienced, and then suddenly you're now presented with a new idea in CrossFit. So what did you see in CrossFit that you thought, like, you're kind of blown away by? You're like, Jesus Christ, this is so much better, or this is so much more suited to people like me, rather than just going into a weight room, doing a few sets of bench, doing a few curls, feeling good about yourself. What did CrossFit present to you that you were like, this is such a better environment, this is such a better thing to be doing my hour of the day, rather than just lifting barbells?
what I love about CrossFit, and I'll get into the kind of briefly the training side after, I love as a business that the market regulates. So if you are an awful CrossFit gym, you're going to be out of business very, very quickly. If you are a particularly good CrossFit gym, with a bit of luck, you'll do okay. And 2017 is the first year globally that the numbers of new CrossFit affiliates, new gyms opening around the world, have started to decline. So what's happening is the middlemen and the smaller guys are being subsumed or consumed by some of the bigger gyms. So the consolidation is happening. So in the early days, CrossFit got a bad reputation because Richie does a 2-hour job on a Saturday, sits a little exam, and then he's qualified effectively to coach people, which you can see how that can present as problems. So I love that the market regulates and that you get a direct correlation for the amount of effort and what you do comes in the door and is into the bank every month, if that makes sense. From a training perspective, what I love about CrossFit is it takes the best of everything. CrossFit's nothing new. CrossFit's been around forever. It's your high intensity interval training, it's your strength training, it's your TRX, except CrossFit has a look out and they say, okay, that's popular and cool, let's bring a bit of that in. So a regular CrossFit class, you have a bit of yoga, you have a bit of TRX, you have a bit of strength training, you have barbells, you've got your conditioning, so it's kind of all things to all people. And to put a linear or to put an organised program around that can be challenging. But again, I can't believe I've mentioned yet, but I'm incredibly fortunate to have a business partner, Gary, who's really, really good at this. Gary's a CrossFit nerd and he's a training nerd, but more than that, he's an incredibly good person. And the two of us are laser clear in that CrossFit is merely the medium we use to try and help people. I know that sounds very wishy-washy, but I revert to my comments on PwC and in Jemison where I didn't feel I was adding value. I know I'm in there adding value every single day. I need to be stimulated to get up and go to work. Like, I was up at I think 5 yesterday, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself that I was up at 5. I get to get up at 5 and go into my own business. I'm incredibly lucky to do that. I'm stimulated by this. I'm getting feedback daily on the bottom line of our finances, but also verbally, emails, texts from people saying, thank you, this is helping me. I feel better, my relationships are better, work is better. And you get that feedback, you know you're doing something right. And it's just lucky that we get paid to do it.
Okay, super. And you touched on it there at the start. You were saying that you could do a weekend, a few days, and you could be a certified coach. Like, has there been, I'm not going to say improvements, because obviously different coaches are more qualified or better than others, but is it still very much the case that, you know, you can just do a few days work and you're technically a qualified coach, or have they put a more in-depth, more challenging process for, say, a CrossFit qualified coach to actually become a coach and be credited with it?
Yeah, absolutely. They've completely recalibrated the accreditation process, so it's quite stringent now. And there's levels of coaches and there's speciality courses, so they've really tightened it up. And you see that globally with the popularity and the growth of it. If they were bandits and they were wrecking people all over the place, I think it would have died off sooner.
Okay. And did you have to educate yourself like a huge amount on the process? Like, when you came in 2013, when you started CrossFit 353, did you already have a firm base of all the ins and outs of how to do certain lifts, or was it pretty much, you know, we've got an idea, but now kind of, Jesus Christ, I need to get my act together, I need to get qualified, I need to do a lot of reading, I need to make sure that, you know, as you were touching on earlier, you know, I can't bluff it.
Yeah.
Because this is people, as you were saying, it's people's health, it's people's like mental health as well. So, like, to put that into a question, like, did you have to go about doing extra learning, or were you already sorted when you opened it up?
No is the answer. I guess that continuous professional development and education never stops. And from a coach, and I would see myself kind of as a rugby coach primarily, I'd coach CrossFit the odd time. If you think you've got the answers, or you think you've got, you don't need to continue to learn, you're probably dead in the water and someone else is gonna take your place. So absolutely, from the very start, we need to upskill quickly. I was sneaky with that. I kind of pushed Gary into the limelight on the coaching side. And I was like, Gary, you get qualified there. We're all qualified, but I suppose as the business got busier from 2 hours a week to, I think we've 70 hours a week now, there's a natural split where Gary would look after the customer facing side and I'd look after the boring VAT and the playlists on Spotify.
Okay. And just kind of slightly off topic, I was reading one of your blogs that you posted yesterday attached to the site, and you were saying that, you know, you're quitting social media, and obviously every business has got to base a lot of its kind of just advertising, promotion, all that stuff around social media. But basically just ask you, like, what is the reason for you as an individual to give up something that is so relevant to, say, your business?
Now, full caveat, when I say I gave up social media, I have an account that I use to post. So our social media strategy or application is we'd post one Instagram photo or video a day, and through Instagram you can click a button to share that to Facebook and share that to Twitter, and that's it. That's 15 seconds a day. So I do that more often than not. On a personal level, I just found we're so busy. Like, we're incredibly busy, all of us, which is great. And Gary and I spend a lot of time together, and we try and get the laptops away and dig into and kick the tires on different processes and different ideas. And something we've really honed in and focused on in the last 6 months is do less. We discussed this briefly earlier. Do less and do it better. So if I'm doing 6 things, do I have the ability to add value to those 6 things? So if I'm, for example, coaching 4 rugby teams and I'm working in a juice shop, and then I have to come in and coach a CrossFit class, is that CrossFit class getting as much value out of me that they could? Is CrossFit 353 as a business getting as much value out of me as it should? Probably not. So in terms of quitting social media, I found myself, I might have 6 items to do, but I may have spent an hour on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat during the day. And I reflected on it a little bit. I was reading a few things, a few podcasts, watched a few videos, and I was like, I don't feel good about myself doing this. Genuinely was feeling a bit down on myself. And Grace, my lovely fiance, we'd have both of us a long day at work, get home, and the odd time 2 of us be sitting on our phones not communicating. And I'm scrolling nonsense that I don't care about, that makes me feel bad about myself, that is trying to drive me to purchase or consume. And I just kind of had this realization, where a kind of moment of clarity where I don't need this. This is nonsense. So I just said, get rid of it. It's funny that you mentioned the blog yesterday. I was inundated with calls and texts and emails from the UK, from the US. I got a text from a buddy being like, I've been off social media for ages, and I showed the wife your blog and she's decided to give it up for a week. So it's not why I did it, but nice to hear that people resonate with it, because you and I are normal guys. Chances are, if I'm feeling one way about this thing, most people are feeling the same, you know? So to solidify or finish that question, I think for a business perspective, starting out, we were like 50 likes on Facebook, unbelievable. What does that equate to in the bottom? How many memberships are you selling on 50 likes? 0. What's the purpose of it? It's good to validate your business. So if Richie's never heard of CrossFit 353 or 365, as people like to call it, you check Instagram, you check Facebook. Okay, they're actually there. The look and feel is nice. It's kind of consistent. You do your little bit of homework. Are you going to make a purchase decision based on that? I'm not sure. Maybe at €30 a month, certainly not at €250 a month. So it's about removing clutter, about being more focused, doing less and trying to do it better.
Okay, great answer. But the reason I'm actually interested in that is because I'm actually reading a book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Irresistible. And it's basically, it highlights how attention spans have dropped by 4 seconds in the last 15 years, how people are spending, when you calculate everything, the time on their phone, laptops, etc., they're spending like 20 years of their lives looking at a screen. So I definitely think we're in a society now where technology is just dominating everything, dominating our lives, dominating, you know, the media, the press, all that stuff. So I definitely do think it's relevant. It's obviously interesting to get the feedback from you on that. And lastly, before we head off on our separate ways, what do you see as the future of CrossFit 353? What are your future plans? Whether it's short term, whether it's 2 years down the line, whether it's 15 years down the line. Where do you see CrossFit 353 being?
Well, I guess trying to stick to my recent mantra, or our recent mantra of do less, do better. The goal is growth. Like any business, scale it. I'm not afraid of failing. I don't want to fail. I hope not to fail. But I'd prefer the business to fail having opened 2, 3, 4 units and crashed, rather than letting one wither away and die. There's enough in it at the moment. The growth is significant enough to encourage us to keep going and try. A little known fact that we're often asked, what is 353? Where did it come from? We didn't call it CrossFit Bath Avenue or CrossFit Balls Bridge, because the goal was always to grow it and grow it internationally. 353 plus 353 is the Irish area dialing code. We just thought it's a leprechaun throwback to Ireland, that if we can open a unit in America, if we can open a unit in the UK, if we can open a unit in Dubai, that it's a little throwback but not a shamrock and a pot of gold. So yeah, I guess the goal absolutely is growth.
Okay. And to cap it off, I've done it with the previous podcast, is a few quick fire questions. So prepare yourself mentally, just to whatever pops into your head first. You just got to say it, really. But I'll just get going. So lifting weights are body weight exercises?
Body weight exercises.
A night in or night out?
Such a loser, a night in.
Your favourite podcast to listen
to? At the moment, Ben Bergeron has a Chasing Excellence podcast, and it's just, when we talk about being stimulated, it's relative to what I do, but I think there's a huge amount that everyone can get from it, so I'd recommend anybody to give that a listen.
Okay. And what would your favourite meal for breakfast be? I'm kind of a fat kid at heart. I'm still a little bit of a fat kid, so I generally try and skip breakfast and eat later, but I get the porridge in later in the day anyway. Okay. And your favourite country to visit?
Oh, jeez. Big affinity for America. Folks have a place in Florida, a few pals in New York and Boston, Chicago now, so I really like America.
Okay. And books or movies?
I guess I'd say documentaries rather than movies. In one of the blogs, I'd only read a book if I can get something from it. So it's like selfish and narcissistic and weird. I'd read a biography. I'd read like Agassi's biography or Anthony Kiedis, or I'd watch a documentary which drives Grace insane. I'm poor at watching something like Harry Potter or where I'm like, if I can't learn from this, I don't want to do it, which is weird. But I guess documentaries to answer your question.
Okay. And if you were to recommend one guest on the next podcast, who would it be?
I think a fellow Michaels man a year ahead of me, Peter Foley, who is an incredibly interesting guy, incredibly nice guy, has got a brilliant business. I won't tell you too much more about it, but whether you get him or not, I'm not sure. I know he's pretty busy, but I'd recommend Peter Foley. Okay,
Peter, hit me up, Facebook. And the last question is, describe yourself in 3 words.
Humble, optimistic, a bit of a bluffer.
Good way to finish. Anyway, Peter, thanks a million for coming on. I wish you and the CrossFit family all the best in your future endeavours, and hopefully over the next few weeks I can pop myself down for a summer cut.
Yeah, Richard, sorry, I meant to start with this, but genuinely want to congratulate you. I think this is an incredible platform and thing to do, whether this is the last one because everyone hates it, or it goes on to be something huge. I genuinely want to congratulate you and commend you for doing it. I think it's brilliant, so thanks a lot.
Okay, well, thanks a million, Peter. All the best.